Well, thanks so much. Please have a seat. It's great to be back in Vero in Indian River County. I tell you what, they had some of the fresh squeezed orange juice there, and that is not what you get in the supermarket from concentrate. That is the real McCoy, and so that was really, really good. I know we're going to end up having an unusually brisk weekend in terms of the weather. You are going to see some freezing. I know that's caused some challenges with folks here with the groves and things of that nature, so we wish everybody well with that. I think in southern Florida, you're going to see iguanas falling from the trees. I mean, a lot of them, because they can't handle. Once it gets even past 40, under 40, some of these places it's going to be, in the 20s and 30s, and so that's going to be, and then it will also potentially impact, and this is something we want, it will impact the Burmese pythons in the Florida Everglades. So you may see a python mortality event, which, we're working hard to get them, and we've removed a lot more, over the last year that had been done previously. We've done a lot since I've been governor, but we've stepped it up dramatically because it's really important. But, sometimes it's like, you can do what you want, and then, God will just take care of it for you maybe. So we'll see what happens with that. But we've got a lot of great people here. Florida Secretary of State Cord Byrd is here, and he's got two different roles. One, he's kind of like the head of culture in Florida, interacts with other jurisdictions, but then also oversees elections. And since I've been governor, we did election integrity. We've had more prosecutions for voter fraud than you've ever had in a similar period of time. And it's not just voting for a candidate fraud. We have these constitutional amendments that these special interest groups will get petitions to qualify for ballot. And a lot of these petitions are fraudulent, and we're calling them out. And so we did a big reform that if your name and signature come on a petition, the supervisor has to send you a postcard saying, hey, we have a record you signed this, did you? And you know what? We have thousands of people getting those postcards saying, I never signed that doggone petition. Well, how the hell did that happen then? Fraud is how it happened. And so you've got big-time criminal investigations. You've got people that are going to be held accountable in just this election cycle for having done that. But, in some respects, the petition fraud is even worse than if you have fraud in like a candidate election, because the petition could lead to changing the Constitution, so like that's forever pretty much. And so it's really, really important. And so Cord has led the effort on that, is just done amazing. We have our CEO of Visit Florida, Brian Griffin, with us. And then we have two sheriffs from the Indian River County, Sheriff Flowers, and then Sheriff Del Toro from St. Lucie County. I want to thank them for the hard work they're doing. We're very proud to be a law and order state. I tell people that there was a segment like a year or two ago on CNN, of all places, where they had this gang that was stealing in New York. I think they were illegal aliens too, but they were stealing, and then they would get all this money from the theft. They'd sell however they would do it, and then they'd come and then they would spend it and live large in Florida as tourists. And then they'd go back to New York and they'd steal. And so the CNN person was like, well, why don't you just stay in Florida and steal there? And they say, because they put you in jail there when you steal. So. We also have, I know, Senator Mayfield. I didn't see Senator Garcia here. I didn't see her back there. But Senator Mayfield, we have Representative Miller. Trabolsi is not here, but I want to thank you guys for what you're doing. Then we got a lot of people from the city council here, Vero Beach, and so I want to really thank you for what you're doing on that. So 2026 is America 250, and we... We started last year on this, as this would be something that we were going to lean into as a state. And I was able to last year procure from Mount Vernon this beautiful statue of George Washington that we put in the Florida Capitol. So if you go into the Capitol, you want to go to the governor's office, you look, you got this amazing statue that Mount Vernon has lent us. And we're saying we want to do other things to be able to celebrate, partially because it's the right thing to do, but partially, we need more education in the public about the founding principles of this country. We need more education for young people, even though we've done a lot on civics and all those other things. So we're doing a variety of different things. One of the things, we have counties in Florida that are named after various members of the founding generation, and so I'm getting statues to bring to those counties for their namesake. So I have Franklin now in Franklin County. We did a Thomas Jefferson in Jefferson County. I've got Hamilton on the way for Hamilton County, Madison, Monroe. Blue states are taking down these statutes, so I can get them for a discount on the market. I'll bring them in Florida, no problem. I will do that. And so we're going to be putting those up, which is going to be really, really good. And I did say when this guy was running for mayor of New York, he was very much opposed to the statue of Columbus that they have in Manhattan in Columbus Circle. And so I told all those retired NYPD, if he takes that down, bring it to Florida. I'll put it up in Florida. So we'll see. We could put it in St. Augustine. He didn't actually reach St. Augustine, but he led to be able to reach St. Augustine. So we may be able to do that as well. So we've done this, but we're also going to be doing things for people that have exemplified the kind of the spirit of 1776. So not just the founding generation, but others. So on, I think a week from today, we're going to be doing, we have a Ronald Reagan that we're bringing. We have others that we're bringing. So, it's good. And so we think it's important. Now, people will say, Florida was not one of the original 13 colonies. Which is true, but we're kind of like dubbing ourselves the 14th colony because we think that there's a lot of interesting history about British and Spanish rule, then eventually United States, and then becoming a state in the 1840s. But we also think that, if you look at the spirit of 1776, if you look at those enduring principles that the founding fathers relied on, that's what's guiding us here in the free state of Florida. That's why we've been successful. That's why people are leaving these other states to come here. And I know, I'm not asking anyone to come because we got a lot of people. But the reality is people don't want to stay in areas where they don't have good opportunity or aren't treated well. And people have wanted to come here. And so we have all these different metrics that will be able to show that. But we really believe that we in Florida really live up. Just think about civics education. When I became governor, I was like, we've got to rediscover this. And so we have middle school requirements. We now have beefed up high school requirements. They actually take an exam at the end of the school year. And honestly, they don't perform as badly as I thought they were going to. People said, they should have to do that in order to graduate. And I said, maybe someday. We got to work to get there. But it was, honestly, it's gotten better. And we have speech and debate again, our speech and debate initiative. So I think when I was governor, there was like a half a dozen districts that had robust speech and debate programs. Now, all 67 school districts have robust speech and debate programs, and we do a big championship in the spring. This year is going to be at New College in Sarasota, and the winner of the speech and debate is going to get a $50,000 scholarship. Number two, $25,000, and then the other semifinalists, 15, quarterfinalists, $10,000. And so that shows really that we value this. We've also done a Civic Seal of Excellence program for teachers because, the reality is if you look at academia now, if you really want to study the building blocks of Western civilization, what our founding fathers relied on in creating the republic, you don't necessarily have great options. The pickings are slim because they've got all the ideological studies that they're trying to do. Now, we're reforming that in Florida. We had, when New College, when we put in the trustees, they overhauled new president one of the first things they did, this was before no one would do this, they eliminated DEI first in the country, first college, and then they eliminated gender studies. And they eliminated some of these things which are not, I mean, it's trying to do an agenda. Not trying to focus on, kind of those core timeless subjects that are important. So, so if you're a teacher and you go, you probably don't get exposure to what you really need to understand the kind of the building blocks. And it's not really your fault. It's just that's the way higher ed has gone. Now, not in Florida. We go to the Hamilton Center, University of Florida. We've got options here, but that's relatively recent. So we have a program where they can do, and they get a $3,000 bonus for participating. They do 50 hours. It's, it doesn't have to, it's not like it's in the online, whatever. And some of the best scholars are talking about, how did Enlightenment thinking factor into the American Revolution? How did Christianity factor into the American Revolution? What about natural law? What about British common law? All these different things. So you come out of that really understanding the logic of what the Founding Fathers did, how those principles are reflected in our Constitution, and really, informing some of the debates that we have, now. You go back, there's nothing new under the sun. Yes, you see different technologies, different environment that we operate in, but in terms of the core understanding of where do our rights come from, what about human nature, proper role of God, none of that really changes. It's just you got to apply those principles to a new set of circumstances. Our Founding Fathers understood that very well. So we're arming the teachers with the ability to do that and to let the kids kind of have a full understanding of what this means. And the thing about it is we have students that will go, we have people that graduate not too far from here, high school, they'll go work for SpaceX at 18 years old. We've got people that go to community college and then they end up getting skills after 2 years and then they're doing well. Got people that go to four-year college and then end up doing, we've got people that go to graduate, medical, all these different things. So there's all these different paths, but no matter what path you take, you are going to be called upon to exercise the duties of being an American citizen. And what does that mean? And are you going to be able to do that in a way that's going to help preserve freedom for future generations? And I don't think you can do that if you're just a blank slate, if you don't have any type of direction for understanding. And so everything we've done is to try to provide that because we know it's really, really important. And so we have a website, America250fl.com. That's our official hub for all the different things that are going along. You can see about the 14th colony that we're talking about. We have an exhibit on that, which is really, really cool. But we're also able to make some announcements here today. So first, I want to be able to announce, so that, they have President's Day. And it's federal. Florida does not recognize it, but it was really, in the U.S. Code, is Washington's birthday. It's not for every president. I mean, we don't need a day off to honor Millard Fillmore or James Buchanan. You just don't. Like, it is what it is. Sometimes you get good, sometimes you get stinkers, and that's happened throughout American history. So you don't need to do that. So it's really Washington's birthday, and not that there haven't been other great presidents, but Washington really is in a class by himself as the founder of this country. And, we have separation of powers, checks and balances. I think we should have term limits for members of Congress, right? I mean, come on. And so all of that architecture and all of kind of our political culture is built around a truth that no individual in a republic is indispensable. That, you serve, but it's ultimately, a broader context here, except the one guy that was probably indispensable was Washington himself, because he obviously led the war effort against the British, which they were not favored to win. And when they were embarking on that, and they signed the Declaration of Independence, July 4th, 1776, or whenever they signed it, it was July 2nd, 4th, and then they kind of go. But it was put out to the world on that date. that wasn't something that they did flippantly. It wasn't something like now people just pop off on Instagram or something like that. Like when they signed their names, they were either going to succeed or they were all going to be put to death. That was basically the stakes. And so they understood that when they did it. So it was a really significant and monumental undertaking. And so he led through that, which was incredible enough. But then as the war was coming to an end and it was clear they were going to win, there was dissension in the ranks. You had a lot of military officers that weren't, because they weren't being paid really. I mean, you had Articles of Confederation, which wasn't working, and they were actually being treated very poorly. And so a bunch of these guys really wanted to have the military just take over, and that Washington would take over the country. That obviously would not have meant that we were a republic, and so they were kind of scheming to do this. And then it was in Newburgh, New York, and it's called the Newburgh Conspiracy. So Washington gets wind of this, and so he goes out and basically snuffs it out. He puts on glasses, which was kind of a big deal. And he said, "Forgive me, but I've not only grown gray, but blind in service to the country." And he started talking about the importance of a republic. And all these guys just wilted because they're like, this is the great man. And he's basically telling us we were wrong. There's no way we're going to be able to do that. But many others would have not done what Washington did. And then he also, after all that was done, victory's at hand, everything's done, he simply retired his commission, surrendered his sword, and then went back to Mount Vernon. He could have taken over at that time too if he really wanted to. And then he came to help with the Constitutional Convention and presided over that. And then, of course, when the Constitution was ratified, he was elected president for our first president, and then, of course, reelected for that. And so, you may not have been able to get this thing off the ground were it not for him. So I think he really deserves a lot of credit. And it's kind of weird because his name's on a lot of things in America, but people don't really think about what he meant. It's just kind of like Washington, D.C., this Washington State, this, that. But he's not quoted the way like Lincoln would be, or even more modern people. But I think the character and the virtue that he showed to this day is second to none. And so I'm pleased to be able to say that we are going to this year for America's 250 recognize Washington's birthday, not just federally, but as a state holiday. So our state offices will be closed. Our state employees will be able to have the day off, which I know they're not going to complain about. And we're going to have a series of events that weekend that is going to help celebrate the birthday of George Washington. So first, we're partnering with NASCAR to sponsor the America 250 Florida Duel at Daytona. So it's going to be an exciting race at the start of Speed Week to celebrate Florida's rich history. The race will involve drivers competing for their starting position in the 68th running of the Daytona 500. And then this will complement the Fresh from Florida 250 that happens that Friday, February 13th, sponsored by Agriculture Commissioner Wilton Simpson. In addition, that period of time, that 12 to 16 of February, all fees are waived for admission to state-owned public lands, including our public parks, state parks, wildlife management areas, water management lands, and Department of State historic properties. So you can enjoy that free of charge. We want people to be out there to be able to get that done. Another thing we're doing, because we're saying Florida's the 14th colony, is we've got something called the Florida Historic Golf Trail. Now, they didn't play golf in the colonies at that time, and it was a while before they started to. But we've got all these very historic places, and we're going to offer them for their 14th hole a special 14th colony flag that they could put in that hole. I don't know if John's Island Club will want to put that up, but like some of these others may want, and I think it's really, really nice. So we'll be able to do that, and we're happy to be able to offer that, and it's something that's really, really meaningful. And then finally, I'm pleased to announce that we are going to be, the state of Florida, through some of the foundations that are associated with the state, are going to be sponsoring an essay contest on America 250 for Florida students. So allow applicants to enter for the chance to receive one of 14 Florida prepaid scholarships to help with their schooling in any of the state colleges or universities. And so there'll be further details on that that'll be forthcoming. You know, we have this thing, Florida Prepaid, where you can pay to basically get your kid, free. It's effectively free by the time they get old enough, tuition at our state colleges and universities. But since I've been governor, we've not allowed them to raise tuition at all for Florida residents. And so we have by far the lowest in-state tuition of any state in the United States for our state universities. It's about $6,300 for tuition. We actually have pretty low out-of-state tuition. I think that may be the lowest or close. Honestly, I don't mind charging them more. I just want to make sure our Floridas are doing that. And you know, we also have possibilities for students to qualify for in-state based on their grandparents' residency. And we've been able to help people do that. And I know that's something that a lot of folks, throughout Florida. But it's interesting with this prepaid, because we've held the line on tuition, they've gotten to the point twice during my tenure as governor where they had to send a bunch of refunds to the prepaid families because they overpaid, because they were paying thinking that tuition would go up. And if tuition went up like it is everywhere else, it'd be way more. So they're getting these checks back, and they've refunded like billions of dollars to prepaid families. I mean, it's been really, really incredible what's happened. But those prepaid scholarships, that is for state universities or for state colleges. And so it's a really, really good deal. And I think that this is going to be a great time for students to be able to compete and really think long and hard about America 250. And the final thing I'll just say before we bring up some of our other speakers is, why does this matter? Well, it matters. It's just the right thing to do, and I think. But it matters even more because when they went out on this journey to launch this experiment 250 years ago, they did so knowing that they were bucking the tide of history. Republics that had been attempted had all failed. They were likely to fail. And so they said, we're going to determine once and for all, can people govern themselves or not? Can you have a society where your rights come from God, not the government? Where you have rule of law, not the rule of men? All these different things. America was going to ultimately answer that question. And so, they set out a lot of ideals in the Declaration of Independence. They later provided a framework for those ideals when they created the U.S. Constitution. But, when Benjamin Franklin walked out of the Constitutional Convention, he was asked, did you give us a republic or a monarchy? And his answer was a republic if you can keep it. Because they understood you could have the best Constitution in the world, you could have the best Declaration of Independence in the world. These things don't run on autopilot. They require every generation of Americans to step up and defend freedom, particularly when it's threatened, sometimes even putting on a uniform and risking your life in service of this country. And so the experiment continues. The question that the founders sought to answer was not finally answered by the documents they produced or some of the things they did. That just gave showing, that you can get things done, that you can do it the right way, that you can have low crime, that you can have low taxes, that you can have big surpluses. We've paid down, just since I've been governor, the whole history of Florida. In my tenure, we've paid off 50% of that debt for all of Florida's history just since I've been governor. So you can do, universal school choice. You can do all these things. I mean, heck, we're doing Everglades restoration. All the things we're doing, environment, people said you couldn't do any of that. We're doing it. So we're showing it can be done, but I think the debate is still raging. You see different philosophies that have been at play throughout the country, and the ones that have not been good have all pursued a certain course that has not been good philosophically, and I think we really had that solid foundation that's rooted into what our founding fathers tried to establish 250 years ago. So I'm proud of that, and I'm proud Florida's leading the effort at the state level to celebrate America 250. Okay, Cord.
Well, thank you, Governor, and good morning. It's such an honor to be here with you. I have so many good friends in this part of the state, and it's always exciting whenever I get to hear the governor talk about, with passion, what it means to be an American and what is right about Florida, or what makes America Florida. And in the preamble to the Constitution, there's a phrase, to ourselves and our posterity. And the founders were telling us, they were giving us a duty and a responsibility, and it's a reminder to us all of our responsibility to future generations. And part of what we're doing this year in this celebration is we're reflecting upon the commitment of the principles enshrined in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution for the benefit of all Americans. So this isn't just a history lesson. This is why, as the governor has stated, why these principles are relevant to each and every one of us today, and why in the free state of Florida we're fighting for these things. So just to go over, as the governor said, some of the things that we're doing, we started, just like everything in Florida, we do it bigger, better, and faster than anybody else. We started last July 3rd, putting up the statue of Thomas Jefferson in Jefferson County. And then we're coming up with the 14 heritage sites throughout the state, one of those being Mission San Luis and in Tallahassee, which tells an intriguing chapter in American history. And for those who don't know, the first Christmas was in America was celebrated in Tallahassee by the Spanish who were there exploring. And the Mission San Luis is currently nominated by the USA Today for one of the 10 best open-air museums, and you're still eligible to vote, so you can go there and vote. We have the Duel at Daytona coming up, which will be with the Florida Department of Transportation and NASCAR. We have a promotional video that's at all of our gas station, TV centers, welcome centers, and airports, in which I'm telling about what we're doing here in Florida and getting Floridians excited about all the things coming up. If you've traveled the state, and I stopped at one of the rest stops on the way down this morning, you'll see America 250 signage and banners. So we're remarking and reminding of those historical things that have happened around the state. Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles has issued a commemorative America 250 FL license plate. At the visit centers, we have Florida Orange Juice, America 250 FL videos, and a road trip map and guidebooks to help people find those hidden gems in Florida. Something I'm also very proud of, at the Department of State, we have a Veterans History Program where we have staffers that are touring the state, recording stories from our veterans for posterity to tell their stories of their heroism and what they've done in sacrifice to our state and nation. Thanks to the governor and the legislature, thank you, Senator Mayfield, we distributed last year $1 million in America 250 FL grants. We have an Unsealed podcast, which focuses on America 250 and both the United States history and Florida history. We have a series of commemorative America 250 FL historic documents and maps available. We've curated an America 250L Spotify playlist, and we have a designated stage at the Florida Folk Festival showcasing America 250 FL. And at America250FL.com, we are collecting family stories tied to American and Florida history. So if you have one of those great Florida stories, one of those great Florida family histories, please go. We want to know your story. We have a calendar of events, both of local, state, and federal. We have that you can find the heritage sites, you can find the interactive roadmap, and then certainly please follow us on social media at America250FL.com. We're on Facebook, X, and Instagram, and every single day we're putting up posts. I mean, the stories are amazing from our sports history. There was just one up about UM and the first bowl game they played in. There's stories about Gatorade. I mean, so every single day you can go and follow us and learn something new about just what an amazing history that our state has. I just want to close by thanking the governor. He really spearheads this, and when we talk about the free state of Florida, it's because of this man and his leadership and everything that he's done to remind us of that we should be proud to be Americans. We're proud to be Floridians. We have a great story to tell, and it's incumbent upon all of us to make sure we share that story with our friends and neighbors, and most importantly, our children. So now it's my honor to bring up President and CEO of Visit Florida, Brian Griffin. Brian, take it away.
Good morning. Thank you, Governor. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. My name is Brian Griffin, and I'm the President and CEO of Visit Florida, Florida's tourism agency. And I'm really grateful to be here to join in celebration and recognition of 250 years of our great country. This is an exciting year for America, and it's an exciting year for Florida. We have committed to going all in for 250 celebrations. And under the governor's leadership, state entities are partnering together for a grand-scale celebration of our country and our state's contributions to the republic. Now, let me first set a baseline that you don't often hear in the news and political discourse. America's a good nation, founded upon an exceptional set of principles that stands as a symbol of hope and liberty to the world. We set the standard for the rule of law, we acknowledge and confront our imperfections, and we contribute greatly to the world. And I'm proud to represent a state that affirms these truths, and in Florida, we don't equivocate about America, we celebrate it. Exactly right. God bless America. That's what this year is all about. We're celebrating our country by highlighting our exceptional qualities and our storied history. And at the direction of Governor DeSantis, state entities are working together to make opportunities available for residents to experience American and Florida history, to enjoy our state's natural treasures, and to spend time with family and friends at exciting sports and recreational events throughout the year. And to that end, we invite visitors who are looking for the right place to celebrate America's 250 to come to Florida and celebrate with us. And what better way to kick off this year than with Florida's Birthday Bash weekend for George Washington. First in war, first in peace, first in the hearts of his countrymen, George Washington is a man to honor. He led our American troops bravely and then stewarded our nation wisely as our first president. But we celebrate more than his accomplishments. We celebrate the virtues that he held out through his conduct in office: courage, loyalty, hard work, humility, and a reliance on God in difficult times. When he was setting the precedent as our first president, he picked a lot of his cabinet members based on merit, and his first appointments based on merit, setting the tradition for us to be a country of merit. He also, even in his farewell speech, was willing to acknowledge and even apologized for some of his personal faults, which speaks to his humility. He voluntarily relinquished his supreme power as Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army on December 23, 1783, and later, after 8 years of service as our first president, he declined a third presidential term in 1797. These selfless actions set a critically important precedent for America's rule of law and people-led government. He turned down the opportunity to be a king and thereby bestowed upon every American a republic greater than any one man could ever build. He bestowed on us an exceptional nation. Washington's birthday weekend observance is Florida's way of saying this record is worth reflection and emulation. And to that end, Visit Florida is helping to populate America250.fl.com with resources and event details for visitors and residents to find an opportunity to share in this observance. For some, that might mean spending time in one of Florida's many incredible state parks, which are offering free admission from February 13 to 16. And to others, that might mean exploring Florida's history and historic sites. Visit Florida has been releasing historic photos and video shorts on our social media, and we are working to soon release a docu-series on Florida history. That'll all be available on our website, and follow us on our social media. We have available on our website and in our state welcome centers a historic driving tour map of Florida produced by the Florida Department of Transportation. Historic sites abound in our state, and we are happy to point residents and visitors towards them. Additionally, Visit Florida is encouraging and offering local entities, counties, cities, and attractions an opportunity to partner with us to make known their America 250 activities and historic sites through our America 250 co-op marketing campaign. We're also proud to be working with the Governor's Office and the Florida Department of State to unveil those statues that the Governor's talked about, the founding fathers in the namesakes of the Florida counties for which they're named after. And so far, of course, you can see our statue of George Washington in the Florida Capitol, statue of our third president and the author of the Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson in Jefferson County, and Benjamin Franklin in Franklin County. Like the governor said, while other places in the U.S. have torn statues down, Florida's put them up, and we are proud of that, and there's more to come. Visit Florida is glad to be helping to lead the effort on celebrating America 250. Between this, the World Cup, and our year-round unbeatable vacation destinations, we've got quite the year ahead, and of course, many reasons to take a trip to Florida. And tourism is strong in our state. In fact, we're the #1 domestic destination for tourism among all 50 states, and Visit Florida works diligently to protect that market share. The tourism industry exists to serve you, our residents, and in just a year's time, tourism in the state of Florida generates $134 billion in economic activity and saves each of Florida's 9.1 million households nearly $2,000 in taxes. The tourism industry supports 1 in every 8 private sector jobs in the state of Florida. Florida is blessed by strong tourism, and our industry is blessed to be living and working in Florida. Our efforts to support America 250 are just another way that we are glad and proud to support our state. So come explore our state's rich history, reflect on our founding fathers and monuments across the state, enjoy our statewide Washington Birthday Weekend celebration, and travel our state all year long to capture the spirit of '76. Stop into a Florida Welcome Center for more information, or visit America250fl.com and choose Florida as your America 250 hub. Thank you very much.
And why don't we have those tourists do more so that we don't have to do the homestead property tax? We have all these people, right? I mean, come on. So 2019 was my first year as governor, so the local governments in Florida that year took in $32 billion in property tax revenue. This year, it's estimated to be $60 billion. So that's almost doubling, in 7 or 8 years. And one, that's not sustainable. If you had just gone from 32 and said, okay, what's the population and inflation growth? And it's been significant. I mean, we've had significant population growth. Inflation, nationwide is cumulatively has probably gone up 25, 30%. So that you're not going to be immune from that. But if you said inflation, population growth, that 32 would be about 44.5 billion, and yet it's 60. And so, the reality is we have the ability to really help people out. And the thing is you have young people. It's hard for them to afford homes now, partially because of the taxes. But then you also have older people who, if they want to downsize, if they've been in their home for a long time, they downsize. The taxes is a lot more, so they don't want to pay. And I understand that. And so, but that makes it so that the market isn't turning over, the way it needs to do. So, but bottom line is, we're really blessed that we have so many people who come and, basically, help pay for what government needs to do who aren't residents here. Some of them aren't even, we have, very wealthy people from foreign countries that come and buy homes. I think those are the ones you want to tax, not our residents. And so we're working on that for sure. So, okay, good deal. We got any questions back there? Yes.
Thomas from the Sunshine Journal. George Washington often referred to the press as scribbling idiots. And, it was very partisan in his day, and the press as being part of the First Amendment. And the 250 celebration, how do you look at the press today? We see some organizations actually promoting these protests against the current administration and stuff like that. But how do you see the press today, and how will Florida celebrate this right that we have of freedom of press?
Well, I think it's interesting because the founding, you're right. I mean, basically Hamilton had a newspaper, Jefferson had a newspaper, and they were basically just at each other's throats. I mean, they didn't have but it's representative of those two wings in the early republic, and they were very nasty. And in a lot, honestly, the founders dealt with a lot nastier stuff than we do now. Even though it's gotten coarse in our day, but that was really, really nasty. But I think the founders. So what did they mean by the press? The core thing was like when they had the American Revolution. What were they doing? They were printing pamphlets talking about natural rights, talking about not having a king, talking about, taxation without representation, protesting some of these things. And so they would go, they'd print, and then they'd disseminate. And that was like the core way that they could communicate with a lot of different people. And so the core of that was always just regular citizens being able to speak and being able to carry their message out to educate and influence their fellow citizens. I think somehow that's kind of evolved where there are certain people that think that if you're press and you work for the New York Times, so you have special rights over the rest of the public. That's not what the founding fathers said. Your right to print something out and disseminate it is every bit as robust as whatever right a New York Times reporter would have to write and do it. And so I think that there's kind of been this view amongst established corporate media outlets that somehow they are special and that basically, you know, they should be able to treat it one way and then the rest of the public should be treated the other. That really isn't the Founding Fathers' view. I mean, I think they thought it should be robust across the board, but I think you've seen the evolution into more activism. So instead of trying to, you know, report, it's really trying to create news, you know, through fake narratives, through anonymous sources. You know, if they want something to be true, but they don't have the facts, they'll just say anonymous sources are telling them that. You know, a lot of times these are just made up, right? I mean, it is. Like, there's a lot of lies that are put out there. But the founders at the core was, they're going to go print pamphlets and they're going to give it. So I think what would the equivalent be, you know, in this day and age? I mean, probably would be a lot of what you see on social media. Now, I know there's a lot of bad stuff on social media for sure, but I think it's like, how could a citizen get out the information that they wanted to, particularly if they're trying to effectuate some change, and that was really, you know, the way that it's gone. You know, an interesting thing that we're seeing now, you know, you have Minnesota and what they're trying to do. Fast forward a year ago, January of 2025, you know, a lot of people don't remember, you know, I called a special session of the legislature for immigration enforcement. And we did a bunch of different things that were good, but the core thing that I wanted to see in legislation, which we got, was all state and local must cooperate with DHS for immigration enforcement. It doesn't mean that a police department, yeah. It doesn't mean that a police department has to do the federal government's job for them, but it does mean if, you know, our state troopers pull over an illegal alien for drunk driving and they have reason to believe he's here illegally, then they need to turn that person over to DHS. If you got someone in your county jail that's an illegal alien, you know, you need to make sure DHS is able to come pick them up and remove them from our communities. And yes, we also require street level enforcement where we have task force, we have all this stuff. So, but I insisted on that. And, you know, at the time, you know, we actually had opposition, this, that, all the things, but like, why did I do that? Because I knew, even in a red state like Florida, you get mayors, you get different types of, now most of our sheriffs want to be a part of it, but not all, some police chiefs, whatever, you know, that they would be doing what the mayor of Minneapolis or the governor of Minnesota or somebody to try to not just not cooperate, like they won't even turn over criminal aliens that are incarcerated to DHS for removal. They won't even do that, but they're doing more. They're whipping up active sabotaging of this federal mission. And I saw that that would be a possibility, and so why what we did is what we did. So now, you know, you could have some mayor in wherever, I'm gonna stop ICE, all this stuff. Okay, you know what? You're gone. You're out of your position, and you get removed. It's just that simple. But it's interesting because, I mean, just think about how crazy this has gotten. So Biden comes in, and he opens the border. Well, first of all, I don't know if he opened the border or the auto pen opened the border, but someone opened that doggone border. I know that. So you have an open border. And we sent people to help Texas. We were the first state. You know, we sent to Martha's Vineyard, you name it. We did every tool at our disposal we did to be able to help protect Floridians from what Biden was doing. But the reality is, you know, there would be things we would do, like, you know, we made it, you know, we wanted to say, if you come to Florida illegally, that in and of itself is a crime. There's certain things we tried to do, and then they'd sue us in court. Now, courts would say, you know, it's a federal function, you know. So think about it. If the federal government's acting within its proper constitutional authority and is legislating something, then obviously a state can't come and do the opposite of what that law is if it's in their proper sphere. But think about Biden was not enforcing federal law. We were just trying to be faithful to federal law. We weren't trying to violate. We were trying to do what the law says, and that meant, you know, apprehension and removal of illegal aliens. And you can't, it's a federal function. They got to have discretion. They can do here or there what they want to do. Okay, well, first of all, I don't agree with that. I think if the state is furthering the law, enforcement of the law, I think you have a right to do it. So we've battled on that. It's changed now because the Trump administration welcomes our cooperation. But now what you have in some of these states, you have the governor up in the Northeast just said they're doing like a website and a hotline where people can film ICE and send things and do all this stuff, all that. What they're whipping up in Minnesota, what they're trying, so states somehow it's a federal function. You don't have the right to faithfully enforce federal law when the federal government's not. But when the federal government wants to enforce it under a new administration, somehow these states can sabotage the enforcement and somehow that's okay. Well, either it's a federal function or not. If you say states shouldn't be, then you should not be out there, trying to upend the apple cart, but that's what they're doing. I think they think they're getting a short-term political advantage, and they may be. I don't know, but what I do know is North is North. If you have a task to correct what Biden did to this country, that's not dependent on the news cycle. That needs to be done, and some of these jabroni politicians should not stand in the way, and you should not let them get away with that. But I'm seeing that where they're really not just not cooperating, which, think about it, if you as a resident and somebody is like in jail for sexual assault, illegal alien, would you want the person released into your community or would you want the person deported? I mean, seriously. Obviously, you'd want them turned over to DHS. And they won't even do that, which is really, really bad. But they're going a step further. They're fomenting street-level opposition, not just protest. You have a right to protest. Fine, protest. I mean, I see, I'll go sometimes in Florida, there'll be 5 of these, it's just fine. Look, if that's what you want to do, with your free time, God bless you, man. But it just doesn't. You ain't moving the needle, let's just put it that way. But that's fine. If that really matters to you, you can do it. Obviously some of those other areas, they get more people. A lot of these people are paid, let's just be honest with that. And so, you've got the Soros and network and all this stuff. All these Democrat politicians, they take a photo with Alex Soros, and then he tweets it out. This governor, this senator, it's like a humiliation ritual, and they're doing it. And what Alex Soros is doing by putting those pictures out is he's just, verifying to the rest of us, he owns those politicians, right? They are pursuing his and his dad's agenda, and part of that is what you're seeing, in all these other areas. But they are fomenting all this stuff, and it's really outrageous to see, kind of how that's done. So we nipped this in the bud last year, at the beginning of the year, knowing that this was going to be something that was significant, knowing that we had to have to all be on the same team. And look, there's some sheriffs, mayors, police chiefs that are very gung-ho. They want to work with us. They want to work with DHS. They want to get the job done because they know it's important. But there's others that would rather not do it, right? Or some would even try to say, well, we've made the law very clear in Florida. So we had an election in 2022. I won, had a lot of room to spare on that one. 2024, Donald Trump won Florida, won it significantly. And so we're bringing forward policies to help effectuate that agenda. And I just think that that's something that's really, really important. So Florida led the way on that, way before anyone else was talking about any of this stuff. And that's part of the reason we've been so successful. So, well, good deal. So please keep dibs on what we're doing on America 250. I've got Reagan, I've got Calvin Coolidge statue, I've got all this stuff coming. It's going to be really fun over the next 6 months. So thanks, everybody.